right, so our next step is going to be working to connect the stage bottom with the proscenium piece. And so let me pull that out here. Okay, so we have our stage bottom here, it's upside down, and then we have our proscenium piece. And we're gonna need to apply some glue to these model pieces to help it get ready to be assembled. So our first step, and if you're following along in the written directions, we are on step number 20. We're gonna take the assembled part K, which is this part right here. Remember, this one has a K on it. And we are going to put it on its side like this. Can you see that? Let me turn it around. On its side like that, with side 3 pointing up. And then what you're gonna do is you're going to apply glue to the edges of the H pieces that are facing up. You're not gonna apply it to all the edges, just these little H beams right here. For a little bit of added stability, you can also apply some glue to these little inset corner pieces, but you don't have to. The main thing is you do not want to apply glue along this front edge because that's going to be visible and it's going to be sticking out and it's not going to touch anything, so it doesn't actually need glue. So for my model, I am going to add a little bit of glue to these little inset points here, but I'm not going to add it to this front edge. I'm not going to add it to edge number 3, which is labeled here. Okay, so we're gonna do this really quickly. So we're gonna set that aside briefly. Don't tip it over. And then we're also going to apply glue to the edge of the assembled part AG. So that's this proscenium piece. And you're gonna look right down, let's see if I can see it, right down on the inside right there. And you're gonna put glue right on this edge right here that's labeled number 5. Now we are going to take our pieces and we are going to slide this little tab here. Can you see that? We're going to slide it right through this gap on the proscenium piece. And it should, if you've assembled everything correctly, it should fit right through there. And just be a little gentle. Great. Also, one thing I want to make sure that you do is as you're sliding this little tab into here, double check that you have the A side pointing in toward the stage floor. Can you see that? Yeah. So the key thing that we want to have on the inside toward the stage floor, which is right here, is we want to have these little squares. The reason why is because you're going to use these squares to line up your piece in the next step, but don't worry about that now. For now, just make sure that your A piece is pointed in and not out. Great. Before you slide it all the way home, oops, come on, you're going to apply just a little bit of glue, not too much, don't go crazy, right on the inside of this facing piece here. You don't need very much because it's not actually holding anything. It's just to sort of seal those edges. And you might have what's happening here. See how it's bowing out just a little bit? You can just sort of tuck that underneath the tab and then apply some pressure to it. And applying pressure to this at this point is a little tricky, but you want to remember that you have glue on these H beams right on the inside, and you want to kind of just gently apply your pressure from both this front way, like right here, and also from the top. Sometimes, if I'm worried about it, I will flip this whole piece facing down, and I'll make sure, let's see if I can show you that, that my little H pieces are lining up correctly. You can see now why it's so important to have your pieces at a right angle, because it just makes assembly later harder. The other thing you may need to do is sort of, let me see if I can even show this on the camera. So see how this piece is sort of bowing in? and it won't touch the H pieces. What you may have to do is sort of slide your hand or your pinky finger into that little gap and make sure that it's pushing up against the H pieces on the inside. As you can see, this one's not quite connecting as much, but I can just sort of tuck my hand in there and hold it for a little bit up so that the glue will set. Yeah, using a little extra glue in this point to really connect those H pieces to the inside of the proscenium piece is totally allowed. The inside of this bottom piece, of this K piece here, let me turn it around so you can see. These inside pieces, like, no one's gonna see them. So, you know, don't go crazy. But it's okay if you're struggling to get them to really connect, to just sort of add a lot of extra glue on the inside here, just to make sure that you have some good connection points. All right. And so here's what you should have. You can see that we have the proscenium piece, which is right here, attached to the rest of the model. So again, you're going to want to let this piece dry. Once you're kind of happy with how it's connected, you're going to want to let it set. It's, you know, you don't want to move ahead too quickly and then just like rip this piece apart. So if you need to take another break at this point, and let the pieces set together. Okay, so once you have this all together, and looking good, you want to set it down again, flat on the proscenium side with the stage floor pointing up. Okay. Again, you want to have this A piece pointing in, and what you're going to do is you're going to take one of these S beams that we made out of our S pieces here, and you are going to apply glue along the edges on the ends here. And so that, again, you're going to see that it's really important that these edges be even. So apply glue right on these edges here, like that, okay? And you're going to attach that piece right here on this little square. You're going to line it right up and you're going to stick it right in the square like that. Make sure that it's straight. You can use your right angle checker here, and you will find that if you did not glue the ends straight, it's not going to want to stand straight. This one turned out all right, but if you have a piece, let's see, where's this one, that has a little bit of a jagged end to it, what you can do is just take a pair of scissors and just sort of like cut down the very end so that it is even. If it's really bad, you might mess up the length, but if it's just a little bit proud of the end, you can use a pair of scissors or an X-Acto knife or a box cutter and just gently trim the end off of that piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down on like a cut safe surface, and I'm going to use a box cutter, but you could use just a pair of scissors. And I'm going to trim just a little bit off the end. I think my head might have been in the way for that, so let me try that without putting my head in the way. It doesn't take much to make these be really uneven. I like to do this after I assemble them to all of the sides, but you don't have to. It's just a little bit helpful for later. Perfect. So now when I set those down, they stand up straight. It can sometimes take a bit more glue on these pieces than you've been putting on other pieces. I tend to kind of put a lot on these just because they're a little fiddly. And you want to just check that it's pretty close to a right angle. It's okay if it's not quite exactly right, but again, these are support pieces, so it's important to make sure they're glued on really well. My cat is hungry for dinner. So the next step, once those are kind of glued on, which involves our last unassembled piece, which is piece M. And this is a pretty simple piece. It's literally just a rectangle. It has nothing else on it. And this is going to act as the bottom to our entire model. And so what we need to do is we need to leave the piece laying on its the proscenium face like this with the little S pieces sticking straight up. And we're going to apply a bunch of glue because we need to stick this model piece, or this piece M, to the bottom. All right, so here's where we need to apply glue. We need to start by applying glue to these inside edges of these H pieces right here. And we're gonna do it right along these edges right here. Okay. If you want, you can hold it in your hand, but I just prefer to do it while it's sitting like this. You also can apply a little bit of glue to this sort of internal piece right here, but it's not as important. It's just like a little extra if you're worried that it's not going to hold. Set that aside for a second, and you are going to also apply a line of glue along the face edge right here. So instead of along the edge that's sticking out, you're going to do it right on the face like we started at the very beginning, and you're going to do one long edge and 2 of the short edges on here. Then what you're going to do is you are going to sort of stand this up, and you are going to line it up with the front of your proscenium. A good way to do that is to just sort of have it set on the table and just set it right on the table like that, and it'll automatically sort of line up. The other thing is you want to make sure that the edges of the H pieces are lined up with the edge as best you can of the M. And you're going to, again, apply pressure. One way you can do it is you can just hold it like this, or if you can keep it lined up, you can set it down and apply pressure onto the stage floor itself. I find that a little bit easier, but it's a little tricky because you want to make sure that this front edge remains lined up. Okay. So 30 seconds of pressure again for all these joints here. You're going to want to wipe off any excess glue that you have sort of hanging out on the outside of the piece. Particularly along the front of the proscenium, because that's the most visible part, and it's really gonna bother you, or at least me, if you have a bunch of glue hanging out there. All right, so it's starting to look a little more like a stage. Okay, so it's time for our final piece that we want to add on here. You're gonna take your combined Q and P piece. Like we said, this was the back wall, and we are going to attach this, and that'll be the end of our model build, aside from painting it, of course. So what you're gonna do is you are going to tilt this down onto the face of the proscenium again, like that, so that the S beams are pointed up. This is going to be part 26. And you are going to apply glue in a bunch of different places once again. You're going to put a good amount of glue on the ends of these S-beams here. Again, it's this is, you know, really good to have these be as flush as you can make them. If you had to trim them, that's okay. Just hopefully you didn't have to trim too much. Okay. You are also going to, we got those, so we're going to apply glue as well to these inside edges right here of the H pieces. And you are also going to apply some glue to this back piece right here of the stage floor, which is the K piece, if you can still remember, although you probably can't see the K anymore, but you're gonna run some glue right along there. Finally, while that's just sort of sitting for a second, try not to get it on anything, you're also going to apply glue along this edge of this Q piece. So we have our Q, our back wall. You gotta remember we had one piece end that was sealed, and then we had one piece that was unsealed. And you're going to apply glue along the edges of this unsealed side. Awesome. And again, try to make sure that you're getting the glue actually onto the edge of the piece. It's a little easier said than done, but you can do it. So mine's a little chunky, but that's okay. Then we're going to line this up. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing too well. But so here we have the stage bottom where we've put the glue. We have these S posts. The proscenium is face down. This open end is going to go toward, you can see there's like a little tab of the M sticking up. You're going to line that up and make sure that it's flush on all the sides. And then you're going to just set it right in place. And you might need to adjust your little S beams. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I can't quite tilt it, but see how this S beam is not quite straight? We're going to line that up. And then we need to apply some pressure for the last time. We need to apply pressure this direction, so this way, so that it connects with the bottom, with the piece that's labeled M. And then we also need to apply pressure going down, so that it connects with the pieces, the H pieces, and the S pieces on the top. Another good way to do this as well is the same as with the front. If you can keep everything aligned, you can flip it over and line it up that way, and do some pressure this way. Now be really careful that you don't, because things aren't quite all the way dry and you don't want to rip them apart. So be really careful that you're not applying too much pressure, just lots of gentle pressure to get this guy stuck together. So when in doubt, if you can't quite get it to stick right, let it sit for a few minutes and let the glue that you have applied dry. And then you can sort of come back and you can push on it a little more. If you have a funny little gap that you want to get rid of, you can sort of add some more glue and push it together. Great, so I'm just gonna let it sit for a few minutes and let it, the glue sort of fully set. I'll come back and check it probably in about 15 or 20 minutes, just to make sure that everything has glued together and set where I want it to. So I'll see you then. Okay, folks, here we are. I'm back. It's totally dry. I had to check a couple little spots, and you can see I started to paint mine, although it looks very chunky. I've just done like one little thin coat on it. Nice. All the little edges to make sure that it was totally done. I need to finish painting mine, but other than that, it's pretty much assembled. For the paint, it's a little bit thin, so you're gonna wanna do multiple coats. You also don't wanna put it on too thick because this chipboard absorbs water really easily and you don't wanna get it wet. So you wanna do a bunch of little thin coats. You'll see as you're painting it that the parts, let's see if I can find a spot here. There we go. The parts where you got glue on it, see I got my little fingerprints. I have a couple little like thin spots, and that's just because it's struggling to absorb the paint. A couple coats will solve that problem. And so that's why we do the paint, because it hides our crimes. It hides our little mistakes, and it'll look nice and perfect once you're done with it, just like in the photo. So good luck. Feel free to rewind this video, pause it whenever you need. And ultimately, when we're all finished, we'll be able to use these boxes as models where we can build our set design. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in class.